heavy listing on that. Following that, however, we're having a very fascinating panel with two highly regarded professional makeup artists about special effects makeup in comic book themed TV and movies. These are folks who've worked on Punisher and other Marvel properties, the Chronicles of Narnia. We're lucky they're awake. They were working on Saturday Night Live last night. You can even tell by the jacket. Following that, I, yours truly, Captain Zorik, will be giving a lecture about the many Captain Marvels. As some of you may know, Marvel Comics has a Captain Marvel movie coming out. DC has a movie called Shazam coming out. And in every clickbait article, somebody gets something wrong about that. We're going to straighten that out so that when someone's wrong on the internet, you'll be able to correct them. That'll be at 2 o'clock about all of the history of all the Captain Marvels. After that, we are going to close the day with our annual Versus Zombies panel. This year it's going to be Androids versus Zombies. So we will have a discussion, compare, contrast, debate, deathmatch. We're going to basically talk about the relative, compare and contrast these two post-apocalyptic survivors, zombies and androids. And after that, we're just going to throw on a reel of trailers of upcoming science fiction, fantasy, horror, and superhero movies for your all enjoyment to see us out of the day. So, does anybody anticipate having a good time today? Yeah! All right. So, I think we're about as ready as you guys want to be. Yes. Or I could keep this.
Like 1 more second. You're killing it.
All right.
Playing the game.
Okay. So, just also want to make everybody know, we got our main stage going on back there, and who here likes cosplay? Okay, that was a softball question, yes. We are going to be closing the show out on our main stage with our big cosplay contest later this afternoon. So that's the big kahuna, the Super Bowl. What? Oh, yesterday was the big one? Okay, the kids' costume contest. Okay, so that's going to be fun and amazing. We've also got lots of other... I'm kept back here in this panel room, you know. It's like I'm lucky to know. That's the sun for me, okay? Yeah, and we've also got panel discussions with the Buck Rogers guests and other things happening out there. We've got dealers, so who here has not finished their Christmas shopping yet? Hello! Make the merchants happy. Who here thinks that you might find something for at least one person on your Christmas list here? Who thinks they'll find something for 2 people? 3, 4, 5. Okay, 6. Anyone thinks they'll find something for 6 people they know here? Okay, just checking. Feel free if you want to attend. If you want to watch the panel. How are we close to this?
Yeah, we're good. Yeah,
We're good? All right, so I'm not going to give you too much more ado. Just once again, this is actually a very serious topic, but these people look like they'll handle it in an entertaining manner. Cosplay Is Not Consent, Catt and Kristen.
Hello, guys. Good morning.
Hi, kid.
We almost just got blinded by that light there.
Revved up like a deuce.
On the Lord's Day. So hello, everybody. In case you do not know, my name is Kristen.
And my name is Tomcat.
And together we make Catt and Kristen. We host a weekly live show on Facebook where we talk all about the cosplay community, what we love about it, who we fangirl over, and we also try to delve into topics that we would like to hear more talked about in the community.
Yes.
And to give, I guess, a brief history of why we know what we're doing, I guess, on some level. Do we really? Does anybody know what they're doing in this community? No. I saw heads shaking. Y'all can't see that. I've been cosplaying for, I think it's been like 6 years now, something like that.
Something about it.
Yeah,
I think we've been cosplaying about the same amount of time.
Yeah, and so we've had our fair share of different, gone to bigger conventions, smaller conventions.
We've been around the block more times than the good humor man.
We have. It's fair. There it is. We'll be here all day, folks. So a big topic that obviously has been
Actually, hold up.
Oh, go ahead. Yes, please do it.
I would like to give a big shout out to Rose Maiden Cosplay.
Yes, give a round of applause.
Big round of applause for Rose Maiden Cosplay.
Yeah.
Without whom this panel I don't think would exist.
Yes, which is awesome. This is our first live show panel, which is really exciting.
It is our first live show.
So we're excited to be here at Wintercon, which is a local con for both of us. So
Yes.
it's an exciting time.
And now the matter at hand.
It's hard to jump into this like being like bubbly and light. 'Cause obviously, what we're talking about today is not so bubbly and light, which is the entire Cosplay Is Not Consent movement, which is awesome. That's great, but the fact that it needs to exist is not so great.
It's not a fun time for anybody.
Do you want to explain, just for anybody that maybe is not familiar, what Cosplay Is Not Consent is pretty much?
Cosplay Is Not Consent was a movement that was started, I want to say, a few years ago because more and more people were finding that in cosplay they were being, I don't want to use the term manhandled, but manhandled.
Yeah.
And groped and catcalled, and like this is a community of nerds. So seeing so many people still like coming forward and saying, I've gone through this, I've gone through this, I've gone through this, and it really sort of bothers me that this is still a topic this is a conversation that we're still having. And that was basically how Cosplay Is Not Consent came to pass, was that so many people kept on complaining, like, this happens to me at conventions, and like people you wouldn't normally expect.
Definitely.
And it's just been this growth, there's so much growing and booming when it comes to Cosplay Is Not Consent, as more and more people start to cosplay, and more people decide to say, oh, well, I can do certain things with them, I can push the button. No, you can't push the button.
Especially as the community has shifted, something we talk about now is that obviously the cosplay community is seriously growing now. It's become a thing where people now know what cosplay means. A couple years ago, I remember when I was telling people I was cosplaying, they were like, what the hell?
Looking at you like you got 5 heads.
Yeah, and now even like on the train to New York Comic Con, people that don't cosplay, just like adults that you wouldn't expect to be in the age range of understanding what cosplay is, are like, oh, you're going to one of those conventions, aren't you? You're going there. Oh, you look so nice.
Yes, Linda, we're going to a convention. That's what's happening.
Yes, and jam. That's where I'm headed to. Thank you so much. And that's actually something hilariously that happened this year to me on my way to New York Comic Con. And you know what the first thing that this lovely woman said to me? She said, oh, I hope you're not walking to the convention center alone. That seems like a bad idea.
That's telling.
And it doesn't matter. This is the problem. As I was about to say that it doesn't matter. I wasn't wearing anything scantily clad. It shouldn't matter when someone says that. Yeah, usually I am. But the fact that somebody felt like the first thing they needed to say to me was, oh, you're not walking there alone, are you? Because that seems really unsafe. And like, what is the environment at this convention like? And this is something that we really need to be focusing on. And there are so many wonderful things about the cosplay community, and in general, everyone is really banding together to try and eliminate these people.
It's camaraderie. That's like there's been a lot of camaraderie lately, because a lot of people are starting to see that it's happening so frequently, and at every convention someone is going to be saying something.
Yeah.
And it's like, what is going to be the breaking point?
Yeah, because as the community grows, it's no longer this small group of nerds that's all here together and understands the atmosphere and is there to support one another. As it grows, unfortunately, you have people that come into it for the wrong reasons. And so what we really just want to talk about is creating a safe environment at conventions and really having each other's backs when you see this sort of thing happening and going on. Because there have definitely been a handful of times in which I've experienced it to a degree, and I've seen other people made to feel uncomfortable by other congoers, by photographers, by other cosplayers. It's universal, unfortunately.
And this is a question that I want to actually ask the audience, because I do see a couple of cosplayers out there. Show of hands, how many people have been like harassed or groped or catcalled at or
just for everybody watching the live stream at home, most of the people in this room have raised their hands. In fact, we're taking the majority of the people in this room have raised their hands.
Yes, they have.
But that's troublesome, obviously, for a lot of reasons. And the number one thing that we talk about on the show is just being respectful. Being respectful, being kind, and understanding boundaries. Yeah. I guess the number one thing that I would say is, Tom, if you saw somebody that near you that seemed to be being made uncomfortable by somebody else, how would you approach that situation?
One of the things I usually look for is tells. Like, I'll usually look for if they're looking around sort of bewildered, not knowing where to go. If, like, I hear that, like, if I hear photographers saying something that they shouldn't be saying, I'll, like, go up to the cosplayer and say, why don't you come with me and we'll go stand over there together and just make small talk. And I mean, that's literally all it takes.
Yeah.
If you see somebody in that type of situation, do something about it. Don't just like stand idly by and say, oh, well, I guess they're going to be able to handle it, because you don't know how strong that person emotionally is.
And something to keep in mind too is that, like, that's a win-win situation for you, because if you go up to somebody and you think they're being made to feel uncomfortable, right? You're going up to somebody and you just say, hey, how are you? Whatever, you enter the gateway. The worst thing that's gonna happen is that they're gonna give you a look and they're gonna be like, no, I'm totally comfortable, like everything's fine. And that's great. That's best case scenario. Then you go on your merry way and everything's happened. But if you go up to somebody, like I remember once at Kittens a couple years ago, there was a photographer who kept on coming back to me and asking for more pictures, and one of my friends, a girl that I actually barely knew at the time, came up to me and she was like, hi honey, how are you? We were just talking about you over there. Do you want to come and join our group over there? And I was being made to feel uncomfortable, and the worst thing that could have come out of that situation is I said to her, oh no, I'm fine, I'm gonna finish up these photos. But in that situation, I was feeling a little bit like, I don't feel totally great here. And she really saved me from that. And I think it's something that we could be doing for each other a little bit more.
Yes, I agree. A good example with myself, and this is something that I've told in a number of our episodes and a number of our stories. I was at Anime Boston a couple of years ago, and there was this older gentleman, and I use that term quite loosely. He was, I want to say, late 40s, early 50s. And he went over to me and a group of my friends, and in this group of friends there were two teenagers. And they were teenage girls, and they were dressed, I think, as Harley Quinn and... trying to think of what, I think, I'll say Poison Ivy for the sake of argument. And he just kept on saying so many lewd, crass things to, like, the entire group, and, like, it was pointed at them directly, and I said, no, this is not happening, not in my house, not in Mama's house. So, he had ended up leaving us alone, but then the next day he approached us again, and I said, that's it, like, I'm tired. And I immediately went to security, and I explained to them, this is what the man looks like, we have pictures of him, we have video of him saying these lewd, crass comments, and we'd like something done about it. Sure enough, they found him and threw him out of the convention, and he was banned from Anime Boston from that day forward. And that's literally all it takes. If you feel uncomfortable with somebody, don't be afraid to go up to security and, like, plead your case, because it's
security's there for.
Exactly.
We
That's
never
what
use
security's
those,
there
but
for.
here we are.
And I wish that more people had. I mean, it does take a lot of cojones to go out of your way to try and protect somebody. But I mean, you might be saving someone's life at that point. This is something that I haven't mentioned on any of the episodes. I was at Otakon a few years ago, and I was dressed up as Catwoman, naturally.
Surprise. Who here is shocked?
And there were these two older gentlemen. I mean, now granted, it was at a bar across the street from the convention center, but some of the things that they were saying, like, oh, we got these, like, two girls from the convention, and they're, like, really into My Little Pony, and I'm gonna, like, tie them up, and, like, just say some incredibly lewd comments. Like, I got so emboldened, I went immediately to the bartender, and I was like, please do something, please, like, what happened? What's happening? I see blue screen.
All right, we're going to the gates, guys. The gates are opening. We're headed towards them.
We're headed towards them.
The light is coming.
I mean, that definitely broke up the mood of the.
We didn't ask for mood lighting. Okay. How dare you? I'm kidding. We love you.
But I mean. If people, I think I've said this a number of times, just because you don't think it isn't happening doesn't mean it is. Mm-hmm. Or,
yeah. Just because it's not happening to you doesn't mean that it's not happening.
Thank you. There we go.
Nailed it.
There it is.
Follow me.
But this is just something that obviously there's a lot to this issue. It's a complex thing, and it's becoming even more relevant every day in our society.
And now here's my thing. To those that think that this just happens to sexier cosplayers, it doesn't. It really doesn't.
Absolutely.
There are girls that walk around in kigurumis or kiragumis.
The onesies?
The onesies.
The onesies.
Like the really big ones.
Is it kigurumi? I've always said kigurumi. Am I wrong? No, you're right.
Kigurumi? It is kigurumi. I got it right! And like they'll just get hit on, catcalled, whistled at, and like why? What possesses a person to say, "Wow, that's hot. Let me see if I can get it." Like I don't understand the mentality behind I don't understand the reason why people do that.
Something that's interesting too is now at a lot of conventions, bigger conventions or conventions that happen at hotels or convention centers over a couple of days, there will. Something that's now happening is there's also a party element to cosplay. That's something we haven't talked about.
Yeah,
like for instance, at Anime Next, I know that every year there's a big old rave, and people are always really wary about this rave because it brings out a lot of the
unsavories,
the unsafe unsafe people at conventions.
I mean, nobody get the popo on me for this one, but I have heard so many stories about people seeing people use drugs and like that's a convention is not the place for drugs. No place is a place for drugs. I don't understand why people use going to conventions as like it's starting to become like Halloween, where people use it as an excuse to get dressed up, get drunk, and have a blast.
Yeah, and that's the problem. The problem is that now there's a whole other element to it at night, right? So you go to this party at night, whether it be a KatsuCon or any of these bigger conventions that kind of are party cons, and that's great. Like, listen, having a good time with your friends and dancing and cosplays, living, great, I'm here for it. But when everybody starts to get really drunk and those lines start to blur, that's where problems really occur, just because somebody is wearing something sexier to one of these raves, or just because someone has attended one of these raves doesn't open them up for business. It's not a great time. It's not a good time. But overall, the way that we can make these communities safer is just by having each other's backs, I feel like.
Just exactly.
And being safe at these conventions. It's unfortunate that we have to think about these sorts of things, but like I know a couple people at conventions that will not go anywhere without a buddy. They like buddy system.
I mean, yes, we do have to sort of take it back to grade school. There's strength in numbers. Just say no. All that sort of fun stuff. And it really sort of confounds me because this is our convention. Why is it now being taken over by these leches? And the sad truth is, they've been around forever. It's just more and more people are putting a spotlight on them.
Yeah.
And I want that spotlight to continue to show those gruesome individuals, because this type of behavior at a convention, it's intolerable. Like there's, I can handle a fair amount of nonsense, but if you're hitting on someone that you shouldn't be hitting on, I don't. Nope.
No.
And I'll be the first person to say there are times when like I will go up to someone and like feel their muscles because I'm that type of gal. But at the end of the day, I know them.
Yeah.
I'm friends with them.
You have a rapport with someone.
I have a rapport with people.
Yeah.
And like the other thing that I love is when people want to take pictures with you, they'll put their hand on the hip, or the waist. No, that's on the shoulder.
Yeah.
You put it on the shoulder, friends.
That's a thing that I had another like interesting experience too. Is I feel like it's really palpably different. You can feel the difference when somebody's taking a photo with you, right? And they've grabbed you around the waist or whatever, and it's a friendly thing. And then you can. I had like this girl, for instance, at New York Comic Con. I was in a Sailor Mars cosplay, and she wrapped her arm around me, and her hand just landed low, and she was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And I was like, you clearly didn't mean to do that. I don't think you just tried to make a pass at me. But there are other situations where people come up to you and they will, like, if you don't mind, they will, like, grab you so close.
You just got right up in there.
This is it. That's exactly, and that is how I feel. I'm like,
and that's how some people feel they can treat you, because it's like, oh, they're in costume, they're used to this. There are some people that are cosplaying for their first time and they're being treated this way.
And overall, that's like a big stigma, is that we talk about this a lot on the show, is that everybody's reasons for for cosplaying are very different. Sure, for some people, it's that they love making the cosplay and then they love getting photos and they love getting, there's nothing wrong with admitting that there's an attention part of this, that there's like a very, it feels good to have your work recognized. It feels good to have people asking you for photos. Listen, if anybody wants to claim that that's not a part, maybe it's not why you cosplay, but it's certainly a thing for some people and there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. Like, would I like a couple of nice photos of this cosplay that I spent weeks on and like lost a lot of sleep over? Yes, I would. But there's a lot of people that think that that's the sole reason why people cosplay. And so it's that line of thinking that then leads them to, oh, so they don't mind if I go up and try to do a funny pose with them, or they don't mind if I just snap a picture without asking. That you could not be more wrong about that. I know a couple of people, actually. I know a couple of people who are just amazing costumers. Like one of my friends, this girl Tiffany, she's an amazing cosplayer. She's now working for Disney. That's a thing. Yeah, when she was making cosplays, it was one of those situations of like, she loves to sew, and then she wanted to wear the costume somewhere. So where did that land? At conventions. She wasn't asking for everybody to like crowd around her or do any of these sorts of things, and she'd always kind of be made to feel a little bit uncomfortable when that would happen. And there's no reason for that.
There are some people that will get incredibly uncomfortable if someone rushes you and says, "Oh my God!" Like, because social cues, kids, social cues. If you are gonna fangirl over someone, just, I love your work.
Yeah.
I love your cosplay.
How did you make that?
How did you make that? Don't be like, "Oh my God, I love you so much."
I mean, you can do that, but like from a step away. Just like take one step back.
There are certain people, I am one of those people, but there are certain people that just cannot handle that type of fangirl.
Yeah, yes, it can be a lot. It can be a lot. And something we haven't talked about, obviously, too, which is an unfortunate thing, is we haven't talked about photography and cosplay in general, and some photographers, and that's a thing.
There
are a lot of amazing cosplay photographers, for the record. Like yes, exactly. So many amazing.
We have present company.
We do. We have great company.
We have some amazing photographers
who will never make you feel uncomfortable. Who are just wonderful.
We love and appreciate them. They do the Lord's work, is what they do.
That's what they do. Remember a moment ago when we were talking about the attention aspect of the cosplay? That's what we're talking about here.
Having said that, there are people that feel that just because they have an icon means they can take pictures of anybody and call themselves a cosplay photographer. My friends, it does not work that way.
No.
You need to be very careful when having people taking pictures, because there are times when these photographers will just start getting like, "Oh, can we go over to that dark corner over there?
Exactly.
Can we go all the way away from everybody? Don't do that." Also, like that's kids, and that's the candy kid van situation happening, and I'm not about it.
And the other thing is sometimes you don't know where those photos are ending up too. I've had a couple of weird situations where after bigger cons I've been tagged in photos because people have been like, this person's selling these photos and doing these things, or and those are all like, you have no right to be doing that without a permission from the two people. That's not a cool thing to do whatsoever.
And again, it all comes down to, what is consensual?
Yeah, exactly.
Let's take a gander at that, shall we? What would you consider consensual?
Yeah.
Asking questions.
Yeah.
Being mindful of a person's, social cues. Understanding that the situation at hand might escalate or de-escalate depending on the situation. Is it de-escalate? De-escalate?
No, you're right. De-escalate.
De-escalate.
You had it, Boo.
Thank you. I'm glad I'm getting this information. I just want people to be more understanding of the people that they're working with now.
Yeah.
Because as cosplay continues to grow and become a business, these situations are only going to get worse. And it's up to the people, the senior operators, to sort of lay the groundwork for more people to understand that cosplay is not consent. Just because a person is dressed in a costume or a uniform or anything doesn't mean that they're your property and that they're yours for the taking.
And this is definitely, I feel like a lot of the things that we're talking about are also big problems with people that are casual congoers, that are not consistent congoers. A lot of what we're talking about, which is wonderful, are not people that are actively continually in the cosplay community, but they also do exist in our community. Something I've been seeing recently that has been really, really awesome, and I think has been out of all the stuff that's happening in the real world, as if this isn't the real world, it is, but in the larger picture, I guess, is that I've been seeing some people starting to actually make posts in which they say, hey, I had a weird experience with this person.
Call them out.
You might want to know. I've seen some.
Did I say that too loudly? Was that loud?
I've seen some clips.
Not too much.
That's fair. Never has something truer been said. Put that on a t-shirt.
I mean, if somebody that you know has a reputation and they're doing something shady, call them out.
Call them out. Like, you don't want to put it on your own page. Like, send it to a couple of people.
Send it to a few bold individuals that have a name in this community and say, hey, something's happening. What would you like me to do about it? Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do about it.
Yeah. That's something that we like to really talk about all the time, is that like the hardest part about all of this is obviously, like we say, everything that we're saying is a little easier said than done, right?
That's
when you're in the actual situation, you think somebody's been made uncomfortable. There's always this moment of like, but are they though? Am I interject? Is this gonna escalate the situation?
Am I covered under the Good Samaritan Act?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Can I make a citizen's arrest right now? Is that a thing? Can I cross that off my bucket list?
There's a reason I bring my whip around with me, and it's not just for protection. I can tell you that much.
Oh, girl. So that's a big thing. That's a big thing that we can all be doing, is speaking out to people, as again, so much
reaching out, making connections, making friends. Like I say,
there's
strength in numbers.
Yeah, there are strength in numbers. Also, thank you to the people that are watching this live. There are some people that are actually watching
we have a couple of views. We have a couple of viewers watching. Hi guys at home. Hi kids at home.
If you guys have any questions, also feel free to shout them out.
Thoughts,
comments.
We only have like another 15 minutes, so I would love to open the floor to people that are here. Hold on. Did you? Okay.
All right, done. Bring them up.
Mama's coming.
Example of a good photographer, a trustworthy photographer.
Well, it's not much of a question, right?
Yeah.
Just more like really a little experience. How's that International Cosplay Day the other year? Right?
Yeah.
And I'm trying to know if that's a true photographer and some guy with a camera.
Right.
Right. There is a big, profound difference in that. So yeah, I was there, right? There was this Mako-chan from Kill La Kill, and GWC was there talking to her, what happened to her, right? So I ended up going like near over there, and I think the guy took off, and then Mako-chan told me that guy was like asking her to do some, I don't know, naughty stuff.
Nasty stuff, just say nasty stuff.
Yeah, nasty stuff, like I want to get into it here.
Right.
So, I don't know, I guess you can look at her, I say, besides, I don't know how old she was.
Right, yeah.
But hey. Happens like a lot of people, man. Like you said, male, female, old, young.
Yeah, doesn't matter.
So they say, I see somebody right there.
Yeah, it happens.
And that's actually something worth noting. It doesn't only happen to women.
No, it doesn't. We've been talking about that a lot. It absolutely does not.
You can't dress like this and not get some type of comment.
Nope, definitely not. No, that's we have a couple of male cosplayers in the room, or whatever you identify as. And regardless, it's universal. It happens to men, women. It happens to anybody of all ages.
One thing worth noting: if it does happen to a man, that doesn't mean you make it any less than what it is.
Yeah. Yes.
Which I think is very important to remember.
Yeah.
If it happens to a guy, it's the same thing as when it happens to a female.
Yeah, definitely. And I will say, I have seen many ladies at conventions going up and running to like a Spider-Man cosplayer and like grabbing him and being like, oh, and that's not okay. I see a lot of people, if a man is shirtless at a convention, again, a lot of women do think that that's an invitation to go and run up to them and squeeze their muscles and whatever. Unless you have a rapport with someone, unless you know that person. And
I was going to say, I've done that, but I've done it with people that I know.
Yes, as an appropriate situation. I definitely see that stuff happening all the time at conventions. So it is universal, and claiming any otherwise is definitely just ridiculous. It happens to everybody. Yeah. Oh, thank you for joining us for this very light conversation, guys. Very easy breezy, beautiful cover girl. Yeah.
Put the bass in your walk. Head to toe, let your whole body talk.
Yeah. I will say, I appreciate at this convention, I know the security is like a thing at this convention, and I appreciate that the security seemed to be very on point at this convention.
Yes.
And that is something that I actually think really could be worked upon at a lot of other conventions, is really implementing security that's actually walking around and seeing this stuff. Because at a lot of conventions, I'll say that at like New York Comic Con and whatnot, I don't see anybody actually walking around. I don't see a single staff member that's not guarding a line or a queue or whatever. Yeah, like New York Comic Con put up the Cosplay Is Not Consent boards for the last couple of years.
Ooh, they put up a board. It's going to do this. It's going to talk to them and everything.
It is. It's going to be great. And then we're going to make them wait in a fucking queue for a couple hours. I'm not bitter about registration.
No one's ever bitter about the queue and what it does to people. No one is ever bitter about that.
Never. No, but seriously, can you think of a convention recently that you've been to that's had security walking around or actually like seeing what's going on in the atmosphere?
CatCon had some reasonable security, but they had it more during the day.
Yes, and that's a party con. That is hotel con.
That is hotel con. What a glorious con that is.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's a lot of stuff that happens at CatCon.
You mean you don't like the underwear party?
That's a Dragon Con.
There was one this past year.
There was an underwear party and I missed it? I missed the underwear party. Well, I'll tell you where I'm going next year.
Underwear party. Yeah, but security at conventions could really make a big difference. That's really a thing that I feel like cons could be working on.
Hold on. Will, our darling Will, who's a frequent watcher, says, there seems to be a following for Nightwing's butt. Something I was made aware of when dressed as Nightwing. By people who I'm sure are just caught up in the moment. The problem is they see the cosplayer as the fictional character and not a real person. That's why I dress in drag.
Yeah, we're real people. I wish that I was Spider-Gwen. Are you kidding? That would be amazing. I'd be swinging from shit non-stop. It'd be great, but like we're not. We're real people.
I'd be married to Batman by now. Come on.
That's a sultry time.
But I mean, again, a lot of what happened?
He proposed the long bat and he got very awkward about it.
Yes, that one Batman. I'll find him again and I'll make him feel just as uncomfortable. But that's also because I like to have fun and I like to joke around. I will, and this is something I personally do. I don't know about a lot of other people. If I make a person feel uncomfortable and I visually see that they are uncomfortable, I will go up to them and say, I apologize if I
made you feel uncomfortable, that was not my intention.
I apologize about it. I just, I'm Tomcat. That's the type of character that I represent. I'm literally the Mae West of the cosplay world.
For anyone that did not know here, and then I'm going to call on you in a second, anybody that did not know here, Tomcat also goes by Con Mom. And that's a really appropriate description for Tom.
It is All right, hold on. We have a question. Hold on.
Yes, and then we're going over here. And then we're going over here.
You'll get back to baby.
Wait, which one?
Oh, wait. Oh, yeah, you're grabbing him up.
We have a third mic. I forgot about the third mic.
That's it. How dare you?
So I was just going to tell you guys at FlameCon this year.
Yeah.
I was doing Ariel on Sunday. So, of course, no shirt because I'm not doing Ariel and not having a tail down there.
Live your dreams.
So I'm going around, it's an uncomfortable costume. I'm at a vendor table, I'm sitting there talking, and one of the vendors reaches over and grabs and tweaks my nipples. And, right.
Excuse me?
What?
So here I am, like I couldn't even step back because my legs are bound together in this tail. And I mean, luckily my girl Tay is like, excuse me, did you ask his permission? But Mofo turns around and says, this is FlameCon, honey. If it's out there, it's getting grabbed.
Absolutely. absolute that if we could capture exactly what we're talking about in a
I
sentence.
don't care if this is Exoticon.
Yeah, no.
I don't care if this is Exotica. Thank you, Dan.
That's god awful. Yeah, that's a really shitty experience. I'm sorry that happened to you because that's awful. That is the exact sort of behavior that we are talking about, and it happens so much more frequently than people think it does.
This is flame color. What kind of backward excuse is that?
I had like a kind of a much lower like experience. I've had people at Anime Next. I remember there was a day where I was like, I had just changed out of cosplay. This cosplayer came up. Thought he was all that, definitely. Came over and was like, oh, let me take a picture of you. Oh, and you jump in there too, because I was with two of my friends, and I was like, oh, no, I'm out of cosplay. I'd rather not. And he was like, and he said to me, he's like, how do you get in the picture? It's a convention.
Really?
Yes, and 2 minutes later, I experienced this cosplayer was wearing fake breasts. And I experienced this cosplayer, someone with this cosplayer was like, oh my god, can I touch your boobs? And this cosplayer was like, no, who taught you those manners at a convention?
That is your mother!
I was like, okay, number one, yes, that's an appropriate response to that person. Number two, remember a minute ago when you were telling me that this is a convention, I better get in the damn picture? What the fuck? Yeah, these things happen way more often than we are all thinking. And I think the number one thing that we can do is be there for one another. Tell people when this happens to us so that we can identify the person, or so that we can be on the lookout for these sorts of tells.
I'm very thankful that I know a few individuals that have, under certain circumstances, gone out of their way at the convention themselves, see this happening, and will physically go up to the abuser and will say, "Stop doing that."
Yeah.
I want more people to do that.
Yeah.
I can't wish it upon anybody, because I mean, there are times when even the two of us, as outspoken as we are, there are times when we're just like, we don't know how to go about it.
Yeah. How do you make sure that the situation
doesn't escalate?
But the other thing to think about is that if this is happening in a crowd setting at a convention, though, you tell that person something outbreaks, people around you are going to have your back. That is something that I'm really sure of at the conventions, is that the core cosplay community, you guys rock. We're great, okay? We're awesome. We have each other's backs, and we want to be there for one another. And there's so much that we can do to make sure that what we do now for this community is how this community is in 10 years from now, because it's only going to keep growing.
And that's why we have shows like this.
This is why. That's exactly why we started this show, because we want to talk about these things, talk about them extensively, so that people see that they are a real issue that's going on. And we talk about many other fun, actual things on our podcast, but this is a huge topic, and it can't be talked about.
It's a very, very big topic, and unfortunately, I do not foresee this changing anytime soon. I mean, all we can do is continue to plant seeds of thought into people's heads and just say, this type of behavior is not acceptable in these types of circumstances. Yep. I don't care if this is a convention where you see nude people walking around. You do not go up to them. You do not catcall them. You do not try to grope them. Like, I wish people would use, something called common sense.
Yeah.
Is that a thing that people have these days?
Yeah.
How that's an endangered species.
It truly. Does anybody else in the audience have anything? We have about, what, do we have like?
We have about like 10 minutes.
10 minutes left? Anybody?
Anyone?
Yeah, come on. Oh, thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Dan.
Tom has another live show, by the way.
Tom has another show.
Yeah, Tom has another show with Dan.
It is called the Common Culture with.
Oh, would you like to tell us? Well, yeah, common sense. Like, I'm a photographer a little bit, and basically, when you go up to someone, you should basically just ask them if they want to have their picture taken.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yes.
And you would not believe the amount of people that find that question difficult, and the whole thing is, sorry, but if you can't ask the question, you can't take the picture. That's it. There's no way around it. If you can't ask somebody...
Honestly, my personal favorite is when photographers will now granted, there are some photographers where it's just like, yes, I want you to take my picture, but there are other photographers that will just come up to you and will say, do you mind if I take a picture? Or they'll just look at you knowingly like, at that moment, I'm like, I respect you that much
Yes,
because
exactly.
you are giving me that tell.
If you start taking pictures before I've even had the chance to nod in your direction, that's wrong. That's not cool, and that's going to make me not want to take photos with you.
That's happened to a lot of people at the party concert, like Dragon Con and ConcertCon, where people will take pictures of you, and your friends will see them taking pictures of you, and your friends will have to say, "What are you doing?
Yeah.
Stop doing that. That's not okay." As a matter of fact, that happened with my girlfriend, Siren Cosplay.
Oh yeah.
And she was at a convention where her picture was being taken from behind because, you know, guerrilla warfare, it's still a big thing apparently. And her friends like came to her aid saying, "Who do you think you are taking that picture without her consent?"
Yeah. I've seen people, I mean, there's always a thing too, I've seen with a couple of cosplayers that are quote unquote known for having more scantily clad cosplays. I don't care, it doesn't matter. But I've seen for these particular cosplayers, a big thing that I've seen is after bigger conventions, always there'll be some sort of ridiculous video or ridiculous picture that's been taken of them that's like zooming in on their ass or was very clearly taken without their permission.
Without even their knowledge.
Without their knowledge, and it surfaces, and like that's not cool. When you take that person's ability to say no out of the question, they ain't gonna like you, and I'll tell you this much, they ain't gonna want to sleep with you. They ain't gonna want to get down with you. I don't know, that's the biggest thing about all of this is like, some people will blame it on social awkwardness, and I think that sometimes the ability to ask
that's sometimes a crutch. I mean, that's sometimes a crutch.
Yeah.
That is sometimes very much a crutch that people hold on to.
Exactly, and like there's no excuse for this though. There's no, I don't care if you have trouble like going up to a woman or going up to a man and so this is your excuse is you're just going to snap a quick photo and go away, or you're just going to do this quick thing or whatever. It really doesn't matter. Unfortunately, if you take that person's ability to say yes or no out of the question.
If you take away their agency.
Yeah, if you don't take it's just it seems like common sense, but it's not apparently.
Otherwise, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Truly. We could be talking about something else, though. There's so many things that we could be talking about. But here we are.
Here we are. And you know what, we do have a couple of minutes left, and I just want to say something. If you're at these conventions and you're seeing something shady going on, just, even if it's after the fact, go up to the person that you feel has been abused, we'll use the term because that's exactly what it is, and just ask them, are you okay? Are you all right? Do you need to go someplace? Do you need to talk to security?
Yeah, do I need to get security?
Do I need to get, like, do you want some, I know this sounds ridiculous, but I do this all the time. Do you need some water? Do you need something to like calm you down a little bit? Because that's honestly what they need more than anything. I mean, protection is one thing, but sometimes they just need to be comforted.
Yeah.
And
validated that this is something that happens.
Yes.
The validation. That's the big thing, is that I've even seen it in the last couple of weeks of some people being like, I had a bad experience with this photographer, and then somebody being like, no, but I've had only good experiences with this photographer, and it's like, no, that doesn't mean this other person's experience was any less valid. It means you had a different experience with that person, but they still did this other thing.
Just because it isn't happening to you
doesn't mean
it isn't happening.
We're gonna have to practice that, I think. Probably.
I'm gonna have it tattooed on my tuchus.
Oh, all right. Great. Into it. Oh, I thought I pulled out this wire for a second. It's fine. I'm just clumsy. I assume that I've done the worst thing that I can. I assume I've done the worst thing.
Hold on. I remember the time I needed security following me around because of constant stalkers.
Oh, yes, that was...
Stalkers! Yeah. That's a fun conversation.
Yeah, that's one of my...
It's just unfortunate we only have 5 minutes
It's
left.
true. And that's my friend Christy Lynn, who also experienced the thing that happened at Anime Next with that gentleman in the photo. And I literally remember this was her first con experience. It was the only experience too where she's usually a gender bent cosplayer a cross player, and she usually that was the only time that she dressed in like a female anime cosplay, and she literally like walked around this convention, her first convention, and this guy kept on following her all around, asking for her for pictures, asking for all these things, and like, listen, she only crossplays now. That's a thing that she does. It's awful. Let's all make each other feel safe. And like, let's all be there for
or at least attempt to.
Yeah.
I think what we need to understand is that there is strength in numbers.
Yeah.
You do need a buddy system when going to these conventions sometimes, unless you know, a skyscraper with the build of a linebacker.
Or a blue belt.
Or a blue belt. But even then, like, you will still, like when I was walking around Otakon as Amazon Eve, I was still getting whistled at, I was still getting catcalled at, and I just had to grin and bear it because there was nothing else I could do.
Yeah. Tell these stories, have these conversations. If you see something, go up to that person, ask them what happened, or interject if you can.
If you see something,
say something. Also, mind the gap.
Get it on or off the net.
Why did we do the same thing? This is why we have a show, guys.
This is why we have a show.
This is it. Do you have anything else to say in the last couple of minutes?
I love you all.
Yes, thank you all so much for coming here.
Do we want to do the shameless plugs?
Yeah, I mean, yes. We have microphones.
We could do the shameless plugs. Why
not?
You can follow our darling Rosebaden Cosplay on Instagram at Rosebaden Cosplay.
Incredible
cosplay.
cosplayer.
On Facebook at Rosebaden Cosplay.
Woo!
You can follow me on Instagram at the.tom.cat. And Facebook is Tomcat Conlon. Also, I have my show, The Comic Culture, with Dan and Tom.
Yeah.
I just have my hands in all the pies.
Thank you.
And
you can find me on the internet as Shut Up Kristen, Kristen. I'm a 10, not a 10. I know, I'm so sorry for that pun. I'm so surprised nobody got up and walked away. I also make YouTube videos. That's a big thing that I do, and I would super appreciate it if you went over and watched those. And I also have a couple of other podcasts and things, but you can find me literally everywhere at Shut Up Kristen, because I know my brand.
And
you can follow us.
And you can, oh my God.
Oh my God. Okay, so we have a thing. We've been talking about it.
You can follow us on Instagram at Catt and Kristen, which is CATTANDKRIST. And there is no ampersand in Kristen because Facebook and Instagram don't allow that.
Yes, indeed.
But Catt Kristen on both Instagram and Facebook.
We go live every Monday or Tuesday.
Every Monday
depending.
and Tuesday in the evening, like around 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
And
we talk about a lot of other fun things too. We talk about we're not always like this.
We're not
this
always
serious.
very, very serious and to the
We
books.
try to lighten it up.
We try to, have as much fun as possible.
Yeah, indeed.
But we thank you guys so much for coming out and seeing us.
Yeah, thank you for sticking around.
The show, and ciao me out for now.
Bye. Except we're still here.
Except we're still here.
It doesn't work as well, to be honest. Thank you guys.
Thank you guys.
Do we turn these on?
Uh,
All right. Where am I? What's happening?